So these are all the actions that we have, okay? And we're now want to go through a setup where we're going to add new actions. And one of those actions is going to involve the ability to actually log in a user, okay? So let's just think about this for a second, okay? What do we need to do? We need to be able to, firstly, allow a user to register, and then we need to allow that user to actually log in. And in doing so, we'll need to actually have information saved onto the actual database itself. So if I just try and do now, when we register, seasicky there. So when we register, we need to show the form, okay? So that means inside of our MVC, okay, I need to have a new case. Show register. Inside that, what do we need? So we'll need, say, a username. Well, let's go with simple enough, right? Email. I'm just going to leave it like that. Nothing. I want to keep this kind of simple enough, okay? And then obviously submit. So that's the three pieces of information that I want. Now, normally on a generalized registration form, you might have date of birth, you might have address, you might have another input for password, so that you could do a little bit of JavaScript to double check that the password is right. You might well have on your form such things as, you know, forgot a username, forgot password. Okay, so they're all just little features. If in here you wanted to have that, you know, you're going to have the forgot password feature, right? What does that actually mean? That just means inside here, I need to have a case, which is password. Okay. And I'll put in all the information I need there. Okay. I'm going to have show register. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have this here, show the register form, and somebody will then submit it. And at that stage, what will happen then is we need to process. What does process in the register page mean? Okay. Need to save in the database. Okay. So everybody with me there? Then for the login, and then we'll also need to have a process. Oops. Now, in conjunction with that, then we also need another thing, which is start sessions. That's what start sessions is, right? Starting sessions is a very interesting concept, because what we actually do is on the server, right? Remember, the server is supporting all of the clients that are coming in. So there could be a couple of hundred clients at any one time. And what we're actually going to try and do is we want to try and keep tabs of each client individually. However, HTTP does not have that feature built inherently into it, okay? Because HTTP, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, is a stateless protocol. So it sends a request, it gets a reply, full stop, okay? Sends a request, gets a reply, full stop. If we want to have some kind of permanency from it and make it stateful, in other words, that when we get a request, we can say, oh yeah, I know who that is, right? And then when we send a reply, we're sending it back to somebody who knows who it is, okay? Now, what we're looking at is in starting sessions, right, is to give the ability of stateful. Okay? And we do that using a session ID. Okay, session ID is just a alphanumeric string that has been created by the server, and it's sent as part of the reply from the server to the client. The client, when it gets that, okay, it will actually save it as a cookie on the client machine. And what it will then do, okay, is every time that it's communicating back with that URL, it will send that session ID. When the server gets a request for running a program like index.php, one of the things we need to do is we need to start the session and see if there is a session ID, see if it's part of the global variables that are part of every HTTP communication. You have your $_get, your $_post. You also have your $_session. So if there is a session ID, the program now knows, okay, this is somebody I've been communicating with previously. And what we actually can do is when we start a session ID or a session, we have a space on the server, a memory space on our server that we can actually reserve, and we can actually store data in there that's useful to us. Okay, so I could, for example, store the user ID. I could, for example, store the user type. Okay, so if I have a number of different users, I could have a session variable that's the user type, and that information I would have got from the actual table itself, the user's database table. I could then in my code have certain pieces of code blocks that can only be executed if you're a particular type of user. So if I have your user type of admin, I could have some code that says if $user type not equal to admin, then you can't do this. Okay, or I could have it that if your $user type is equal to admin, then you can't do this. Okay, so it's an important piece to put together. So as part of our login process, we would start the session and we would save some variables. So what we're doing is we're saving some variables for this session ID, okay, up on the server. So the next time this session ID comes back, what the actual PHP or index.php program will do is it will get access to those session variables, and it can then make decisions on what to happen based on the values of those session IDs. You can store whatever you like as your session ID. Okay. You don't want to store too much because it takes memory. And if you've got just one user, okay, not a big deal. Okay. If you have a couple of hundred users, that can become a bit of a problem. Okay. So try and be selective with what you actually save on the server itself. Okay. So what we have now, if we go back to our code here, is we've got show register. We're going to have a case process register. We're going to have a case show login. Another case login. Okay. Is everybody okay with that to that point?
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody happy enough? Okay. So what I want you to do, what I'm going to do here is I'll just going to put this up on Moodle, and what I want you guys to do is to download it and set it up. Okay, so that's there. So what I want you to do is download that and put it into your XAMPP or HTDocs folder in XAMPP. So there's two things we need to. We need to register, and we also need then to log in. So they're the two things that are required. Okay. Now, from that, we also need some other stuff. So we'll also need a database table, which we want to call users. Okay. So we will use